Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Club Podcast, where every month we deep dive into a different aspect of cinema, directors, genres, actors, or franchises. It doesn't matter, because it's always fun at the Film Club. I'm Dean.
I'm Becky.
And this month we're doing epics. This is Epic April, and what better epic to do than one of the biggest epics of all time?
Lawrence of Arabia.
And for this episode, we needed a guest.
Is me.
Is you?
Is me. Is Randy.
It's
brother of the podcast.
Yep.
And Lawrence of Arabia is one of your favorite movies, so we thought who else but you to come in on this episode.
I do like me the epics. Ben-Hur, Lawrence of Arabia, Ten Commandments, all like easily top 20, maybe even top 10. They're good.
He's like top 5.
I don't know if we'd go that far.
If it's not over 3 hours, Randy doesn't want it.
That's not entirely untrue.
It's like that's mostly true.
I mean, I watched Perfect Blue the other day, and that's only like 80 minutes.
That's true. That is a shorter film.
We did that for the podcast really early. That was like our first animation month, I think.
Yeah.
Highly recommend Perfect Blue. Go watch that movie. It's
Really
a good
movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was weird, though. It's real weird.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah. But yeah, we're talking about Lawrence of Arabia today, the 3-hour, 40-minute epic from 1962, directed by David Lean, starring Peter O'Toole, Omar Sharif, Anthony Quinn, Alec Guinness. Obi-Wan Kenobi himself is in it.
That's right. You forgot Claude Rains.
Claude Rains is also... Claude Rains is in this movie, and I love Claude Rains. I forget he's in this, because the movie's so fucking long, and he's on the screen for maybe 10 minutes in the entire movie.
Who does Claude Rains play?
Allenby. He's like the...
Allenby.
Or Dryden. Dryden.
Oh,
sorry.
Dryden. Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's the English political correspondent for the war.
Mm-hmm.
But Lawrence of Arabia, I'm curious. When was the first time you watched Lawrence of Arabia? Last time you watched it? Because I feel like this is a very this is a movie that people don't generally just pop on for a good old time anymore.
I guess. I mean, I watched it sometime in the 90s because it's a long movie and it's got action and it's not too gory. So watched it then and probably watched it the last time a couple of years ago. You gotta carve out some time to watch Lawrence of Arabia.
It's not a very casual Sunday afternoon movie.
Well, speaking of which, I watched it maybe about like 5 or 6 years ago on VHS, by the way, where I had to swap out the tapes
for one of the most nerdy reasons.
Mm-hmm. And actually, I was just gonna like watch Lawrence of Arabia on like my second monitor while I played Dark Souls.
I see.
That's literally what I was gonna do for the refresher for this. And I didn't even make it out of the tutorial before I just stopped playing and just watched the movie instead.
You was it the moment they cut to Arabia? You were like, and that's it. This is what I'm doing today.
I don't even know. Like the tutorial's not that long in Dark Souls. Like I don't even know if the overture was over.
Talking about the overture, the music in this movie
Yes,
is just
phenomenal.
amazing.
It's a little repetitive. They do use the same music a few times.
Yeah.
Yes, but it fits so well, the desert landscapes, which, okay, the landscapes are beautiful. The shots are beautiful. This is a beautiful movie.
I mean, it was filmed on location, so...
Which is wild, because I think they originally wanted to do this in, like, Arizona or Southern California.
They wanted to do it here.
Mm-hmm.
And then David Lean was like,
Absolutely not.
no, I have integrity, god damn it. I filmed Bridge on the River Kwai, like, last year. Fuck you.
Well, I think I wouldn't say the music's bad. It's just repetitive. The music's good, but they use like the same score during like the same type of scene a few times, and like I get like it's more of like a motif at that point.
Well, it was also a thing where there were different people that were hired to do the scoring for the movie. It just wasn't sounding right, and then they hired Maurice Jarre to come in and do the score for the movie. He wrote the entire thing in 6 weeks.
I see.
It was a thing where I was like, we need something right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he created like one of the best movie scores around. But yeah, it's a little bit much. It doesn't give you enough time to miss Lawrence's theme.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, oh, okay, Lawrence is traveling. We have his theme going again. And it's like, okay, I get it. This signifies here's Lawrence. But it's like, I want to miss it. I want to have it come back and be like, oh, okay, there's his theme.
I think it's because they use it maybe 3 or 4 times, and usually with a theme like that, you would use it like twice. You use it near the beginning of the movie, and you use it near the end, and that's kind of like a callback. But I mean, it is like a 3-hour, 40-minute movie. I guess they can get away with maybe throwing another one in there.
And then you have, what is it? You have the break in the movie.
Oh, the intermission, you mean?
Yeah. The intermission, where it's like, okay, we're going to play the score through again. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to sit there and listen to it really loud, but it's like, after 2.5 hours, I got to go to the bathroom and stretch a little bit.
I went and made popcorn. That was my intermission task.
I skipped the intermission.
Same.
I just skipped the intermission and kept watching.
Yep.
You're just like, I'm waiting for this bullshit. Let's keep going.
I was on a time crunch, man. What do you want from me?
Same.
Oh, you guys just don't, watch these at a normal hour of the day? Come on.
Well, I was going to. I watched like the first hour of it, and then Mom came into my room, was like, you want to go to downtown Disney for like 4 hours? I was like, okay, I guess. And then I did that, and I came back and finished the movie.
I mean, I started the movie and the sun was out, and by the time I hit intermission, the sun was down, and I needed to make dinner. So things happen.
Yeah.
It happens. I suppose. But we should probably tell people what Lawrence of Arabia is about, because
it's not just Lawrence in Arabia.
It's not just Lawrence in Arabia.
There's
like
a whole
thing.
Lawrence in Arabia.
It's a lot of walking in the desert. It's kind of like 10 Commandments in that way.
It's specifically about T.E. Lawrence in Arabia.
Exactly. But for those who want to know the back of the box, we follow the exploits of T.E. Lawrence, a British officer in the Middle East campaign during World War I, who leads a collection of Arab tribes against the Turks for their collective independence, culminating in a massive battle that will end the war, but change Lawrence forever. Dun, dun, dun. Because that was written on the back of the box for the VHS I found. But that is basically the plot of the movie, but it doesn't get nearly half the scope of what this movie's about.
It is. I mean, I'm kind of impressed they're able to condense all of Lawrence of Arabia into that, and you kind of go, well, yeah,
that's
like that
literally
is the
what it
gist
is.
of the movie, but like, it's an oversimplification of it.
It is an oversimplification, but it's not wholly untrue, because something I noticed watching the movie is the plot or the story is really straightforward. You know, because it's based, I guess, on T.E. Lawrence, who was a real guy, his actual exploits.
Yes.
He led the assault on Aqaba. He led the revolution in Damascus and all these other things. But it is really, he gets sent out to Arabia. He becomes part of the tribesman revolt under Prince Faisal. He then goes and takes Aqaba. Then he goes and blows up a bunch of railways. Then he takes Damascus. Then he tries to establish a Congress, and then he goes home.
Yep.
That is the whole movie.
Pretty much.
The beauty, though, is how the movie does something that simple and just makes it look so fucking good. This movie has probably the top 10 most beautiful shots in cinema history. In
spaces 5 through 10.
Spaces 5 through 10, like easily. Because how the movie, I guess, gets us into Arabia, where it's that perfect cut of Lawrence in Cairo, and then it's just the desert plain, the sun's rising, the match cut. It's Kino. But yeah, curious about what you guys, think about the weird, like, broad plot of the movie.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that, like, it's like a simple thing, like, he fights in Arabia, like, it's like such a simple concept. Like, there's a lot that goes on there, and the movie does well to explore all the different facets of that. They've got to deal with supply lines, and, how to lead these troops that don't work together, or, his own inner turmoil with the things that he's done.
Understanding the troops and, their kind of issues with each other and how they handle things.
Yeah,
in
their
own
mentalities.
countries. Yeah.
Him trying to find a way to be the median that brings them together. It's very fascinating. What's also fascinating is just, this reminded me of Citizen Kane in a way, especially in how it starts, because, I guess, spoilers for everyone, the movie starts with Lawrence dying.
Yeah, the movie starts at the end.
Literally starts at the end.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Lawrence goes yeet.
Yeet.
Lawrence goes yeet into a bush on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
So for the first time watching because when I watched this for the first time, I had no idea what Lawrence of Arabia really was about. I thought, I honestly thought it was a Bible epic, to be honest.
Wow.
The cover of the movie is just some dude in
Wow.
robes in the desert. I'm like, is he supposed to be
Wow.
Jesus?
Wow.
I mean,
If you look at the cover,
Okay.
no context.
I guess you're not that far off with that one. It's still a little weird, but I mean, like, I guess you see white dude in the desert, and you're like, must be Jesus.
What do you want from me? All
It's
right.
mean.
Oh, white dude in the desert, 1962.
Uh.
Okay, that's probably Jesus. All right. Look.
Hmm.
Okay, you cannot tell me you were like Lawrence of Arabia, World War II,
Or
epic,
World War II.
or sorry, World War One epic. Like you cannot tell me.
Honestly,
that
I thought it was gonna be a World War II epic
Mhm.
when I first sat down to watch it, and then I was like, oh wait, those are like, fuck, I don't even know what I think it's called the Carcano or some shit, like the World War I era rifles the Turks use.
But didn't think Jesus.
No, I did not think
Nope,
Jesus.
Didn't think that.
There's a bit of Jesus allegory in here.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, because they do mention a few times that the troops think of him like a prophet.
They follow him. He's got followers.
Mhm.
They listen to him.
They do call the two servants that he has worshippers.
Mm-hmm.
They literally, Prince Faisal says, the only way we'll do this is, only way we'll defeat the Turks if we get a miracle. And Lawrence is like, well, then I'll be your miracle.
Yeah, it's basically.
It's
That
there.
sounds like something the Dean would
Yeah,
say.
it's there.
I mean,
It's definitely there.
But we begin the movie with the death of Lawrence, and then
Mhm.
it's, we see him being put to rest in this big fucking palace in England.
Yes.
And everyone's like, oh, did you know him? I shook his hand once, and
Mhm.
oh, well, I knew him, and he was an absolute bastard. Well, I knew him, and he served somewhere in the company of my whatever in Cairo.
Yes.
And then we cut to the flashback, and it's an interesting framing device, because in, like, Citizen Kane, it's very obvious that these are people telling stories of Lawrence,
Mhm.
or telling stories of Kane. In this, it's almost like, now we are the third-person omnipotent force following Lawrence, right? We
Mhm.
just had the setup so that we can see the impact he had,
Yes.
and now we see why he has the impact.
Mhm.
Because we see him for the first time, the very pretty Peter O'Toole as a
Yes.
young man, painting maps in a
Mhm.
basement
In Cairo.
Mm-hmm.
in Cairo.
And generally being a weird, kind of awkward, clumsy kind of dude.
Yeah. I mean, there is a thing where he does a match trick where he'll light a match and he'll let it like burn down to his fingers, and
And he like puts it out with his other hand.
Mm-hmm.
they're like, why do you, oh, doesn't that hurt? It's like, it does hurt. The key is to not to mind that it hurts.
No,
And
the trick is to not mind that it hurts.
the trick is to not mind that it hurts. And I'm like, you are into some kinky shit.
Oh my god. Well, I mean, the guy at the beginning of the movie did say that he was quite the exhibitionist.
Which, from what I've discovered in my research, the real T.E. Lawrence he was into some kinky shit.
Oh god, we
Yeah.
don't need to get into
We don't
that.
need to get into that one.
No,
We
don't.
can
Well-
focus around the movie,
Yeah.
Dean, and not
Yes.
what your search history is.
It was
Throw away your computer.
it was a thing that David Lean like knew about and put that stuff in it as very like subtle thing, because 1963 censorship,
Mhm.
right? He's like, it's very subtle-ish things to allude to, but we get to see Peter O'Toole for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Can we just say this is like career-making performance? This because this is his first on-screen debut as an actor.
Is it really?
This is his first movie.
They got a fresh actor to play the 3-hour, 40-minute epic that was probably like hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, because originally they wanted Marlon Brando to be Lawrence.
Really?
I
That would have been
saw that.
awful. That would have been so
This would have
bad.
been like 63 or 62 Brando. He would
Yeah, he still would have.
okay.
Yeah, but I mean,
He still cared at this point, right?
it's not about.
Did he ever
caring.
care?
It's not about caring. It's more the look,
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Peter O'Toole has like a stunning look.
and he looks a lot like the real T.E. Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you can kind of see, okay, this could have been.
Face isn't
Look.
quite long enough, but basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It is an interesting thing that Peter O'Toole does look like the real T.E. Lawrence from the pictures I've seen, but it
Mhm.
is an interesting thing that he's like a literal foot taller than the real T.E. Lawrence.
Yeah.
Wait, really? How tall was T.E. Lawrence supposed to be?
5'2".
God damn.
He was also everyone out there women like, I will not date a man that has a 5 in front of his height, and I'm like, that man literally like saved a nation, saved like an entire region of the world. He was 5'2". That's a short king right there.
Oh no, he's bringing out the TikTok words. We're in trouble.
I know.
I learned things from the internet today. But
Ooh, Lord.
It's gonna be a long episode.
it's wonderful. But yeah, they brought in Peter O'Toole for this, and that's something that Omar Sharif made note of when he did an interview years later, is this movie had no stars. It was going to be filmed on location in the middle of the desert. It was going to be 4 hours at least. And he's like, I couldn't imagine that not being wildly successful.
And Omar Sharif was the bigger star of the two.
Which is wild, because Omar Sharif, this is his first English language film.
Yeah, he's a huge star in Egypt. And this was like, okay, we're going to bring someone in. And
Oh, from the region.
From the region. And also, Omar Sharif, prior to this movie, didn't have a mustache when he was acting, so they were like, we don't want it for Peter, but can you grow a mustache? And then after this movie, he never got rid of it. That was like, that's my signature now. I got a great mustache. A mustache.
Can we just a mustache?
A mustache.
Can we just say something about Omar Sharif and the look of Omar Sharif? Top 3 mustaches in cinema.
Oh yeah,
Definitely.
easily.
Yeah,
he rocks the shit out of that mustache.
I was also kind of like taken aback because Peter O'Toole in this is like you can describe Peter O'Toole as a very, like, pretty man. They were making comments at the time of, this should be called Florence of Arabia.
Yeah.
He's a very pretty man.
He's a pretty man, and Omar Sharif is very handsome.
Yeah, it's a different kind of, like, good-looking actor.
Yeah.
And then you also have Anthony Quinn when we get to the schnoz he has on for that one.
Yeah.
That'll be a whole other thing.
Wait. So all of these actors at the time when the movie was made were, like, no-name actors?
Basically, yeah.
Jesus, really?
And David,
you named like a killer's row, like
because
previously.
This movie was Omar Sharif's kind of big step into Hollywood because he signed a 7-deal picture with this.
A 7-picture deal,
which would bring in Dr. Zhivago, these big movies that Omar Sharif, Funny Girl with Barbara Streisand.
That's another wild thing about this. Dr. Zhivago. So David Lean directs this movie. The movie he makes right before this is Bridge on the River Kwai, which still maintained as an absolute classic. The movie he makes right after it is Dr. Zhivago. Literally, he's like, I'm just going to make 3 back-to-back 3.5+ hour masterpieces and call it a day. He made like 2 movies after Dr. Zhivago or something like that, and it was like 5-10 years space in between, and it's like fuck, the guy made romantic comedies basically, or melodramas, before he made Bridge on the River Kwai.
Wow. He was just practicing. He was just getting ready.
In the warm-up. But yeah, it is astounding. But we get to see Peter O'Toole for the first time, and then they're like, we need somebody to go out into the desert, into Arabia, and basically be like a contact for the British military. Is that his general thing?
His general thing is to figure out the motives of the revolting Arabs in the region, figure out what they want to do, and then report back to the Brits.
Yes, and this is then we get the match cut. Because, it's like that in fucking 2001: A Space Odyssey, the best cuts in cinema history. Like, it's pretty fucking good. And then...
Well, can we talk just a little bit more about how weird he comes off at the beginning of the movie?
Oh, yeah.
How, just clumsy. Like, he knocks over a table.
He knocks over the tea onto the guy, or the coffee onto the guy.
Yes, he just says some weird outlandish shit.
Lawrence, where are you going? Oh, I gotta go meet a guy. It's like, dude, you're in the military. You can't just be taken off.
It's also the weird way he doesn't understand military manner or whatever. He doesn't salute properly.
Yeah,
and when he does salute, it's so flamboyant. Now, I think that comes off of the real T.E. Lawrence, because the real guy, he is a fascinating way how he became a military officer. So when he was 21, he had traveled all the way out to Arabia because he wanted to be an archaeologist, wanted to study the region. Yes. And he was there for 3 years. And when the British came down for the military campaign, they were like, how the fuck do we transport around? And they were like, you need to know this guy, T.E. Lawrence. He's the guy who's traveled all the way around here 3 years. He speaks all the languages. He does all the archaeological digs. He knows all this stuff. But the general refused to get briefed by anybody other than a military officer, so they just dressed him up in a lieutenant's uniform so that T.E. Lawrence could go to the briefing to do all this stuff. And the general was so taken aback by how detailed and accurate he was, he just signed him onto his staff.
Mm-hmm.
So he was not a military officer. He was a civilian that just was like, fuck it, you're a lieutenant now. Come on in. And by the end of this, he'll be a fucking colonel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, because he was oh god, how do you say? You know how there's like weeaboos, there's francophiles.
Yes.
Well, he would be like what, like an Arabianophile, an Arabian boo.
Yes. Arabian boo.
Like he was obsessed with the region.
Yeah.
Very, very obsessed with it. And it's kind of fascinating because there's this whole feel I get throughout the movie that Lawrence doesn't feel English.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
He feels like a man without
A country.
without a country. Yeah, he doesn't
Yes.
belong anywhere, and he
Mhm.
wants to adopt the Arab culture,
Mhm.
and it's not and they accept him, but then by the end of the movie he realizes that he can never be a part of it
Mhm.
fully.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating. It's a
Yeah,
very
it's-
like core theme of the movie.
It's one of his big character struggles.
Yes. Coming to terms with the fact that he is an Englishman at heart.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's like you can know everything, you can walk the walk, talk the talk, but you're not. You're not it.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I took down fucking Akuba and I'm still not. This is some bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
But we even get that once he's in Arabia and he has the guide showing him a like through, and they're like, you can drink water here, and he's like, wait, are you not gonna drink water? Guide's like, no, then I shall not drink water either. And that's a whole character moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And right around there, you know, the guide is like, oh, you're a cool guy. They give him the gun, and they go and find a well,
Mm-hmm.
and we get, again, one of the coolest shots in cinema history. And we get
A shot that they're going to repeat later.
Yes.
And might even be better than this shot, but it's highly debatable.
Highly debatable. Because this is also one of the greatest introductions in cinema history of Sharif Ali, played by Omar Sharif. And it's like way out on the fucking horizon. There's this fucking 1x1 pixel dot coming at them. And then we get
With all the like mirage effects happening.
the mirage effects, the waves. You know how they did this shot?
Mm-hmm.
They had to build a lens. I think it was a 1400 millimeter long lens. Omar Sharif is riding out from 2 miles away, and there is just 2 Jeeps running back and forth to kick up the dust properly. And they had to paint the sand all the way from where the camera was all the way down that really weird pearly white, so that everything looked good and you had a lead line to pull it in. And the only thing going through my mind is how bad it was to reset this.
Yeah.
If they
Did they
fucked
do
up,
more than one take?
they did.
Oh,
There was
my
a
God.
problem on set where they would have plastic like water cups
Yeah.
that the wind would pick up and blow into the shot, and David
I
Lean's
see.
like, got to do it again. They literally said there were days, like full like 12-hour shooting days, they would only get one shot.
Mm-hmm.
And
You're dealing with the elements.
Yeah,
it took 300 days for them to shoot this movie.
it
Well-
shows.
The lens still exists. It's never been used in anything else, only in this movie.
Okay, I need a American moment. You said the lens was how big?
I think it was like 1400 millimeter.
How big is that?
Big. Like I'm doing again, American moment. I'm just kind of holding my arms out like, how big is it? I don't know, like 2 washing machines wide? I don't know.
Oh, no.
Okay, so the fucker was huge.
Huge. It's a very large
Because
lens.
you mentioned it in millimeters, you know, and I'm like, well, I don't really have a frame of reference for millimeters.
Yeah, it's fucking big.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
It about this big. That's about how big it is. But we get to meet Sheriff Ali, and how does he introduce himself?
He shoots the guy.
Yeah, he kills the guy.
Yes, come on. You know, he kills the guy because he knew he wasn't supposed to drink from that well.
Mm-hmm. That's our well, not his well.
Mm-hmm.
And Lawrence is like, but I drank from that well. You can drink from that well, English. I also like how he just calls him English for like the whole movie.
Well, because it's an easily way to identify him. He's
Yeah,
English.
English, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I'm waiting for him to be like, shut up, cracker. Shut up, whitey.
Kind of true, though. I mean, you know, if we were like more real to life, he probably would have called him some kind of slur.
Probably.
No, I liked, people were talking about when Omar Sharif and Peter O'Toole first met. And Omar Sharif is like, yeah, you know, we meet. And Peter O'Toole is like, your name's Omar Sharif and you're that good looking. That's not possible. Your name's got to be like Freddie or something. And then Omar Sharif in an interview goes, he called me Freddie for the rest of his life. It's just like that's so cute.
Oh my God.
He's like, you're too beautiful to have that name. It's like the name's beautiful, you're beautiful. Dude's got to be Fred.
That is
love
like
that.
that is like such a thing where you can take it either way. Either Omar Sharif fucking hated it, or Omar Sharif
he
was
loved
like,
it.
yeah, exactly.
Omar Sharif was like, that was my homie for fucking life.
Yeah. He's like, we really were brothers. This is awesome.
The behind the scenes for this is wild because again, it's 300 days of shooting, and Omar Sharif and Peter O'Toole would get fucking blitzed. They would go out drinking, and they were like, we were a terror to every elevator girl in the entire Southern Peninsula.
Oh my God.
They were rambunctious youths, we'll say.
Jeez Louise.
But we get to meet Sheriff Ali, and he has like, again, great introduction. They have their back and forth, and Lawrence is like, I will not follow you. I know my way through the desert. I'm gonna go see Prince Faisal. And Sheriff Ali is like, yeah, good fucking luck with that, and then, prances off.
Well, at first he like threatens to take away his compass. He's like, "Oh, can you find your way without this?" And they have like a really nice back and forth. The character of T. Lawrence, like, I don't know how he was in real life, but he has a way with words that is incredible.
Yes. Because there's also a thing where we get a character reveal in that dialogue where, what would you do if I stole your compass? And the implication is, like, he's going to steal it so that T. Lawrence will die in the desert or whatever. And his only response is, then I shall call you a thief. And you see the change. And Ali's like, I mean, I did just kill a man, but I'm not a thief.
Yeah.
Like, a thief is worse than a murderer here in the desert. It's also interesting that, one of the things he calls out is, life is cheap, the well is everything. Something along those lines. And it's a very interesting dichotomy of the perceived English culture and the perceived, like, Arabian Arab culture that we're going to have clash in this movie. But Lawrence goes off, and eventually he gets to find Prince Faisal, right?
Yeah.
Played by Sir Alec Guinness in the brown face, yes.
What are you gonna do? They brought in
Fucking
Omar
Sir
Sharif.
Alex Guinness.
Well, they brought in Omar Sharif to represent the area, and I mean, what were they gonna find another Omar Sharif to play Faisal too? Like, there's only one Omar Sharif to go around.
And Alex Guinness plays such a good Prince Faisal.
I mean, he fucking nails it.
Yeah, I guess he physically looked like the real Prince Faisal, so people that were...
He does kind of look a little bit like him. I saw pictures of Faisal. There's actually a lot of photos of all of these people, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, and people that were still alive in the area that knew Prince Faisal were convinced that it was him. So they'd go up to him and they're like, are you Prince Faisal? He was like, no. I'm Obi-Wan.
I'm Obi-Wan.
This
is not the Prince Faisal you're looking for.
This has to be the movie that George Lucas saw, was like, well, that's my Obi-Wan, right? We're just have an Englishman out in the desert in robes. That's going to be my guy. But it is an interesting thing because, Sir Alec Guinness is fucking just great in everything I've seen him in. And he is playing a very interesting character, right? Because I don't know too much about the real Prince Faisal, but it's an interesting thing where how Omar Sharif is playing, or not Omar Sharif, Alec Guinness, how Alec Guinness is playing him is he seems like a guy who understands the modern world is coming, and he is a true politician about it. He's like, I am not interested in petty things like tribal warfare or lands or whatever. I want guns. I want machines. I want power. That's what he's looking for. And by the end of the movie, you kind of see that, oh, this guy is like a legit like politician.
Yeah.
He does not fuck around.
I have a cousin Faisal.
Oh,
do you really?
I do.
Wow.
Is he named after the Prince Faisal from this movie?
You'd have to ask my Aunt Maria.
That's kind of cool though, Faisal.
Wait, don't you also have a cousin Omar?
Yes, I do.
Is he named after Omar Sharif?
You gotta talk to my Aunt Maria.
I'm gonna find out that you have a cousin named Lawrence, and I'm like, it has to be, right? It has to be.
We're not the cast, okay?
I mean, I think we may have skimmed over like a quick little part of the movie. I mean, there's a lot of the movie to
It's
go
4
over.
There's a lot,
like
yeah.
people might be like, "You're really speedrunning this." It's 4 fucking hours long. I'm just doing.
Well, there's also a
beats.
lot of travel shots.
Lot of travel.
Which we don't need to go over all the travel shots. But
I mean,
think
we could go over each one like a painting. They're so fucking pretty.
And the reason why we have all these travel shots is because Lean was inspired by the Searchers.
Oh, really?
He watched The Searchers religiously leading up to this movie because he's like, look what he did with Monument Valley. I got to do something half as good with fucking the Arabian Deserts.
And after we watched The Searchers last year at the Frida, that was my first time watching it, and then seeing Lawrence, I'm like, okay, I can see the inspiration. And like, it makes sense.
The Searchers is a great movie.
It is.
But anyway, the thing I'm talking about is so when Lawrence arrives, which he arrives by himself, you know, Al Sharif does not guide him there. He does give him back his compass, but he doesn't guide him there. When they arrive on scene, the camp is being like bombed by Turkish planes, and Prince Faisal is like has to like give in to the other British correspondents there that like, oh, you were right, we should have moved 50 miles south or whatever to get out of range. You know, it kind of having that like humbling moment where he didn't listen to the British officer that's there.
It is also an interesting thing because this is World War One, which is considered like the first modern war, because it was the first war that had tanks and airplanes and machine guns. And it's a thing where you can see that Prince Faisal is like trying to rally his troops who are on like horsebacks with sabers and maybe like rifles and stuff. But
he even says something like he doesn't understand this like modern technology.
Yes.
It's like it's very different from the hand-to-hand combat that he's used to.
Yeah, and I think some people might watch this and be like, "Oh my god, that's so like." They're portraying these people as like so archaic and barbaric. Like this is taking place in 1917. Like paved roads were not like even a consistent thing across like Arabia or
well, I mean
whatever.
the thing is like the area had like firearms. Now they've had firearms for like 100 years at this point.
Yeah.
But something like an airplane or a tank, that's a little out of the realm here.
Yeah.
And even, like, you know, basic firearms, you see how excited the men get when, you know, they get to hold a gun or, you know, someone, like when Lawrence tosses the gun later in the movie and they go running for it.
An actual pistol.
Yeah, because these are more modern weapons, like a revolver or a box-loaded rifle. You know, they're more used to probably... I think the term is like Jazale, like the old like black powder, the rifles with like the curved buttstock.
Yeah, but it is like a fascinating thing because the movie is even commentating on like the modernization of warfare here because we get to see Lawrence, you know, throughout the movie comes in and he gets these, you know, different tribesmen and different tribes together. And as they go and they start, you know, taking down cities and conquering, it's like he is showing them the path to like modern warfare. And it's like, oh, it's one of those things where I'm like, that's another thing the movie's commentating on is he took these people who came from more innocent time into like tanks and airplanes and government and control and blood hungry and lust and all this stuff. It's an interesting like through line that's going through the movie. But we get the after this, I believe we get the scene where it's the English commanders and Prince Faisal, and they're in the tent and they're having their diplomatic conversation of what they're going to do. Because it comes down to they need to take Aqaba, which is a city on the ocean or on the coastline or something.
Well, no, they want to take Medina.
Yes,
that's what that's what's like the main goal for both the British and the Arabs at this point is they want to take Medina. Medina is like it's like the second holy city in Islam, and it's also like a big Turkish stronghold at this point, which is like on the flank of the Brits. So the Brits want the Arabs to take it because the Arabs should be incentivized to take it. You know, it's a holy city. Come on.
Cool. Also, we don't want the Turks standing there because they might come and flank us and attack.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
it's a huge strategical place. But Lawrence has the idea to take Aqaba instead, which is unassailable by the sea and the land. How are they going to take it?
And why is it unassailable by the land? Because there's nothing on the land. It is desert. It is the sun's anvil. It is death through that land. And I love when Lawrence has that contemplation, when he's trying to figure out what to do to get to Aqaba. Because I think it's a thing where Lawrence knows more than the English commanders of why Aqaba is important, more than Medina, why that's going to work better for things. Because, he's more just knowledgeable of the culture and the land.
Mm-hmm.
And I love where we had the long, it's probably like 5-10 minutes of just Lawrence like looking off into the distant desert as like the wind blows the sand so it looks kind of like an ocean, and he's just pondering in absolute silence and music. That just looks fucking cool.
Yeah, there's a few scenes where it's just Lawrence thinking really hard, and I kind of like all of them. You know, it's one of those things that most movies just portray like, oh, they just have an epiphany.
Yeah.
You know, they just, they suddenly know. While you can see the gears turning for Lawrence, and it takes him a while, like a whole day of just thinking without rest to figure out what he's going to do.
And I love how it's shot too, where it starts off where the camera's so wide and he's just this dot in the desert, like this insignificant man against this vast landscape, trying to figure out a way to bring the gap closer, to get from point A to point B, right? And then as he's figuring it out, the camera gets closer and closer throughout these shots until he finally gets it, and he's like, we shall take Aqaba and we shall travel through the desert. And this gets to the point where I think it's the first moment that Sharif Ali actually has some level of like respect for Lawrence, because Lawrence is like, I'm gonna take 50 men. We're gonna cross the sun's anvil, cross the desert. We will take Aqaba from the land. And Ali is like, that's impossible. You can never do that. And he's like, I'll do it if you will. And Ali's like, why'd you gotta call me out like that?
Well, that's not exactly. That's not.
It's a gist.
But the thing is that the implication there, I'll do it if you will. That's not really what he says. He says, if you won't, I will. You know, that's different. That's different. You know, he's like, oh, you know, you don't have to, but I will. But I mean, we're also skimming over one of the best parts of the movie.
But your favorite, one of the favorites.
One of the favorites here is that when they're still talking to Prince Faisal, and they're trying to Oh, is this Prince Faisal? No, I'm thinking of later. I'm thinking of later in the movie when they talk to Yes. That's later.
Randy's literal favorite part of the film.
I'm getting ahead of myself. It's not Prince Faisal that they talk to about that.
We'll get to it. But speaking of the tent thing, because I wanted to just make a note of this. So, movie's shot on location, even the tent scene, and I'm like, why wasn't this on a soundstage? And then I found this out. You know when they're talking at the end and like the tent starts to sway a little bit from the wind and you hear the creaking of it? That was an accident. That was just because the desert winds took it, and I'm like, that just creates a moment.
Yeah.
It creates a moment. That's something that David Lean made a lot of note of, was I don't direct stories, I direct moments. And I'm like, there's a lot of good fucking moments.
There's a lot of good moments in this movie.
But then we get the trek across the desert to Aqaba, and
with 450 horses and 100 camels.
And so many men, and this looks like...
Well, there's only 50 men at this part of the movie.
Is it 50 men?
There's only 50 men at this part of the movie. The part you're talking about, I think that's later.
Oh, okay. Was that one? I think that's when they take Damascus.
Or when they're on their way to take Damascus.
No. That's when they actually charge into Aqaba.
Yeah.
When they charge into Aqaba.
Because that's when they meet the other...
The guy whose name I can't pronounce.
Yeah, because they had actual soldiers from the Moroccan army that were employed as extras in this movie.
That makes a lot of sense.
And it looks fucking good.
It looks good,
cool.
But they weren't paid. So the soldiers were pissed.
Oh.
And a lot of them, gave crap to the actors, and, David Lean kind of let them, desert when they wanted to. Like, so a lot of people did, kind of like, I'm just going to fade off into the background and just not come back. But it's like, you had real soldiers out there.
It's kind of thematic, the soldiers just deserting when they felt like it.
They're like, I'm not getting paid for this. Fuck this shit. I'm out.
On the lowest of keys, there's probably some, like, an 85-year-old grandfather who's showing his kids, like, see that, Sonny? I was that horseman there that almost ran over Peter O'Toole in Lawrence of Arabia.
Cool story, Grandpa.
But yeah, the traveling across the desert, I mean, it goes on for a while. It's a big part of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're probably start this at like an hour in is when we start the travel. And it's a thing where, you know, in some movies, you know, that care about your time would truncate this into like a 10-15 minute like thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is like an hour, 45 minutes, and you need it because this movie, it's like The Thing. The Thing, when I watch it, makes me feel like kind of cold, kind of chilly. I watch this and I'm like, God, it's fucking hot in here.
Mm-hmm.
It's warm. Oh, Jesus.
They really are able to portray it quite well.
Did you hear about the movie's military advisor?
No.
Apparently, for the movie, it was an army officer that was there to, you know, kind of help with all the things that they need thematically for the movie. Apparently, he went mad from sunstroke.
Oh.
He was just so, you know, overexposed. He ended up wandering out of his tent in the middle of the night with live ammunition, just out there in the desert walking. Mm-hmm. They had to cart the dude away because he had just lost it.
That is some like classic Hollywood bullshit. He went mad in the desert and started shooting his guns around, and I'm like, that's some hardcore shit.
Yeah. Yep.
Peter O'Toole's like, I'm on my 5th glass of bourbon. I could not give less of a shit.
He's like, I didn't hear shit last night.
Yeah, me and Omar slept like babes.
Oh my God. But yeah, the whole effect of them crossing the desert is done very, very well.
You feel it.
You really feel it, because it is just a vast nothingness for most of it.
Which is why you need to shoot this on location. You need that vastness of the desert.
Yeah, because I'm not sure if it was for the entirety of the shooting, for most of it. Their nearest well for them to access water was 150 miles away from where they were shooting.
Goodness
so it's like, you know, you could send trucks out there to go get the water and bring it back, but once there's no more water, you just gotta wait. It is hot.
I've been on shoots where like we're filming in a city and we got like 6 cases of water and we go through that shit and like, man, like I gotta go get some more water. Okay, I'll be back in like 20 minutes. I could not imagine being like, I'll be back in 3 hours minimum. That sounds insane. That has to be a thing where they're just like carting like truckloads back and forth all day.
Oh yeah, probably.
That
most
Teamster
definitely.
is getting overtime. But the part that like gets me about this scene or about this track is when Lawrence starts to drift.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes, that's a good interaction.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Omar Sharif and Peter O'Toole have like such great interactions throughout this whole movie. All the little snippets of just the two of them like cracking at each other, fucking good ass dialogue.
It's one of those things. The dialogue is like sometimes it's like very like poetic ish. But sometimes it's just like these are just two dudes who are just kind of ragging on each other because there's nothing to do for in like the desert. But it all means something.
Whenever they rag on each other, though, it's very to the point and like it's very pointed. The things they say, and it's like there's no fluff around it. They say only exactly as much as they need to.
It's fucking amazing. And they started this movie without a finished script.
Yeah. Did they really?
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
I even think there was like a couple different writers or drafts leading up to it, and then and I think David Lean was like, oh, fuck it, we'll just start shooting and we'll get going, which, you know, worked itself out. Great movie. But the moment is when they finally cross the sun's anvil, and they're like, we finally hit a well, wonderful. And then Lawrence sees that there's a camel without a rider on it. What happened to that man? Oh, he must have fell off back there somewhere. Well, we must go back and get him.
No. He will be dead by midday.
And then Lawrence... This is the moment where I'm over here like fucking clapping. This is the hero of the movie where he's like, I'm going back, and he just pushes through everyone and rides right back out in the desert alone. And we cut back, and it's the dude just walking with the sun beating down on him, and I'm like, that looks awful.
Yeah, could you
imagine if
lips are crusty? He is just, you know, drying out.
Could you imagine you're like, you know, on this ride or whatever, you like zone out, doze off, fall off a camel, you wake up and there's just nothing. Nothing as far as the eye can see, and you're like, I think if I walk vaguely in this direction, I might.
You can kind of get an idea from the sun's position and whatnot.
But the moment you see the sun's position, well, I'm on a timer now.
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
You're walking to death.
and everyone is, having their well stuff. The two, I guess, like his servants, or
Yes, the two kids that have been following him around and like pestering him.
yeah, they're like watching out into the desert and like, oh, I wonder where Lawrence is. And then another one of the great shots in cinema history, where across this horizon we see another 1x1 pixel dot that you're not even really sure if there's anything there if a fly landed on my monitor. And then,
how big is your monitor for a fly to be a 1x1 pixel?
I got a big TV. And you see it approaching, and it is Lawrence, wrapped up, and he's sweating profusely, and the guy is just hanging on his back as he's coming back, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, Lawrence made it! Claps, claps, claps!" Even Sheriff Ali is like, "I thought you were dead, English," and Peter O'Toole's just I think he takes a drink of water, says like, "All right, wash this," hands his like little cap, and as he's taking his shirt off, he gets about halfway down, he's like, "All right, fuck this," and he just kind of collapses down and just goes to sleep.
He's like, nap time.
He's like,
nappy
time. And this is the moment where Sharif Ali fully embraces Lawrence as like as an equal, as I show you respect, because when Lawrence wakes up, he is given a whole new uniform.
Yes, he's given like the traditional Arab garb.
The robes of a Sharif. And this is another moment of Lawrence being a little goofy.
I love it though. He
really embraces it.
They're like, "Oh, these clothes are good for riding," so he like rides off away from like everybody, and he gets off of his camel, and he just kind of like runs around with like
using the robes as a cape. He's looking at his reflection in his dagger.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Lawrence, you're enjoying playing dress up a little too much.
He's like, "Yeah, I'm a real Arab now."
But it's also one of the most iconic scenes in film history. Him picking up that dagger and just looking at himself.
It looks so good. It looks Shakespearean.
Yeah.
And then
that is really what it looks like. It looks Shakespearean.
And then, he gets interrupted and feels really embarrassed.
Yeah, he gets interrupted by whomst?
By,
can you say his name? Any namesayers?
It's Abu something. Fuck.
Do I need to go
onto pull up the IMDb.
Yeah, we're sorry. I know he's played by Anthony Quinn.
Adua Abu Tai?
Or
Anthony Quinn.
Auda.
Okay, we're going with that.
Auda, yeah.
Yeah, Auda. So we get to meet Auda, and he's the leader of the, I guess another like warring tribe against the Turks.
Well, no, they're not a warring tribe against the Turks just yet. They're on the Turks' payroll.
Oh, that's right. They're like a mercenary kind of tribe.
Yeah.
And Auda is, comes in, and Lawrence does the thing where, the blonde boy with the silver tongue is able to like rally him together. And
well, we haven't gotten there yet. So what happens is Auda shows up, and he's like, what are you doing out here, Englishman? And then he goes and rides off into the camp because they're drinking from his well, as it were. And they have to defuse the situation, Mr. Englishman and Sharif do.
I also like the balls on Auda, because it's him and his like 13-year-old son with a revolver, and he's like, "We could kill 50 men. This is my fucking well."
I mean, that's the law. They're stealing from his well, What, are you going to disobey Allah's law here?
Come on now. And
in typical dude mentality, yeah, I could take those 50 guys.
Yeah, true.
Me and my kid, yeah, we could take them.
You see my kid? He's got a Colt 35. He can do this shit.
You know what doesn't need reloading? The saber.
I love that shit. That shit is. I love Auda in this movie. I love Anthony Quinn's portrayal of him in this movie. It is so much gusto, and he has that big leader mentality. Because we'll finally get to the scene. They're in the tent and they're having the back and forth, and Lawrence is trying to convince Auda to basically just like join our side.
Yeah, turn against the Turks.
We will take Aqaba. You'll be given all this gold and da 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 da. And I think that something along the lines Lawrence implies like, you'll be rich, and he says, me rich? What's the line? What's the speech?
So
because I know you want to do it.
So basically what happens is Auda says, oh, the Turks pay me 100 golden guineas a month for my services, you know? And then Lawrence goes, I thought it was 150 golden guineas. And Auda's like, this motherfucker knows. He's like, you've got long ears, sir, you know? And then Lawrence says, well, the English could offer you like 2,000 golden guineas for taking Aqaba, you know, and there's a you know, this and that. And how does it go exactly? I think it's something along these lines where Auda, you know, he's like, oh, you know, you think I can just be bought, you know, the Turks pay me riches, but yet I am poor, you know, because I am a river unto my people. He says something like in between though.
And then I love when he says, and I'm a river unto my people, and he throws his hands, and you see like, I don't know, 100 extras just fucking going up.
They're like, get his ass.
Get fucked, dude. I'm a river unto my people. Most iconic line of the movie.
Yeah. Just that like whole like scene, like he really does play a good character there.
Yeah, and Anthony Quinn. I looked this up. So also, I just want to point this out. Anthony Quinn's real full name is very very fun. It is Manuel Antonio Rodolfo Quinn Oaxaca. I'm maybe shorten it down was a good idea, brother. But he plays Auda, and it is captivating. Yes. It is really hard for me to be like, you are way more interesting to watch than Omar Sharif, Peter O'Toole, and Alec Guinness in any scene you're in. And I don't
their
know
whole pack and forth they have in the tent, that like it starts with Auda has no intentions of betraying the Turks. Like, what are you, fucking crazy?
They're the fucking Turks. You see the
Turks.
planes?
You know, they have planes. They've got guns, and that's capital G guns, like artillery.
Yes.
He's like, you know, and it's like, you know, it's not like, no, we're not gonna fucking do this. You're fucking crazy. Like, go back to your master and report that you have failed or some shit. But then Lawrence is like, what are you, a bitch?
Literally, that's basically what Lawrence does. Is like, oh, I didn't know I was talking to a bitch.
It kind of starts with like, you know, have you, who said? I think maybe Sharif says like, oh, you know, have you lost your fighting spirit or something along those lines?
Which translates to, sorry, Auda,
smells like bitch in here. But then,
I like how Becky's just like, I can't believe you guys are saying this. I know it's true, but it's
so true. I mean, can you argue that that's not how the scene basically goes?
Oh no,
until the end.
This is just regular conversation for you guys.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So it's like I'm used to this.
But I mean, Lawrence eventually kind of figures out the correct angle of attack to get out on his side. You know, the last thing he says to convince him is, "No, you shall take Aqaba because it is your pleasure." And Auda's like, oh, fuck this bitch right.
Oh, this sounds so fucking
He's like,
good.
You're fucking right. I'll take it because I can.
He's like, bitch, bet.
I will take it because I can, because it is within my power to do so. Because I feel like it. Which is, I mean,
hard.
That's some hard shit. I'll take this town because I feel like it, because I can.
And this is where we get to see, like,
as you mentioned, however many horses and camels.
How big is this scene?
450 horses and 100 camels.
Yeah, as they raid Aqaba.
Yeah,
and a rider on each in full get up with sabers and guns and
hundreds of extras.
Probably
1,000 extras.
And Aqaba was recreated in a riverbed in Spain. All the buildings.
Oh, so it was that was like a whole giant ass facade set.
Yeah.
Yeah, damn. Because I was wondering how they did that shot of them like running into Aqaba, because it's shot from like a hillside, like nearby.
Yeah.
And you can see the people like flooding the streets.
And just, scope.
And the big artillery guns mounted around.
Just how big this riverbed is. There were 300 buildings in Aqaba that they built.
Yeah. Damn.
They do not make movies like this anymore. This is like when they built the fucking Circus Maxima in Ben-Hur, and they're like, we will build a Roman Colosseum for one scene. I'm like, what the fuck?
Well, I mean, it is the scene of Ben-Hur.
Yeah.
Same with Cleopatra.
Oh,
how many times did they rebuild these big places, and they're like, no, we got to move it. we're going to use up all the wood in Italy because we got to rebuild this thing again.
The only thing that's a modern equivalent is when they built the atoll in Waterworld. They used all the steel in Hawaii, in the southwest of America. They shipped all the steel out to build that fucking thing. And that movie is awful. This movie's great.
This movie's fucking lit.
But this scene is also where they almost killed Peter O'Toole in the exact same way that the real T.E. Lawrence almost fucking died.
And I think it was O'Toole that said, he goes, I think Lawrence was having a little fun with me today. And I was just like, yeah, he was like, you know what, that happened to me. Let me,
What, was he like riding a horse and almost ate it?
He did. He ate it. He was on his camel, right?
That was one of the many times, but on the bike.
Oh,
he lost control on the bike and he went flying off the
while
bike.
they're like during the filming of this, somewhere around there.
Yeah, but yeah, he got injured a bunch. I think he broke like his thumb. He got thrown off camels. It was just injury after injury, and I was like, damn.
I know this one specifically because when they're going down the hillside or whatever,
he sprained both ankles.
That's awful.
3rd-degree burns. He tore ligaments in both of his hips, his thighs, dislocated his spine, fractured his skull. Was bitten by a camel, sprained his neck, tore a groin muscle, and was concussed twice.
I'm pretty sure he tore a groin muscle offset, but we won't get into that.
Yeah, of course. Him and Omar, the scourge of the elevator girls across all of the peninsula.
He also injured his hand offset when he was drunk and he punched a window.
God bless you, Peter O'Toole. They don't make movie stars like that anymore.
God bless.
But the one I know for this is that because they're riding down and Peter O'Toole lost his grip on his camel and fell off. And in the shot, he's like near the front, but all 400 fucking horses, 100 camels are right behind him. And the only reason he didn't get trampled is because his camel came back and like was like over him, like protecting him. Like, that's fucking adorable. You stopped him from dying.
That's a good camel.
He was also like, guy, I bit you once. I kind of owe you this one.
But this is an epic fucking battle scene because they finally take Aqaba.
Well, I love how it's portrayed too, because it's like a very like realistic portrayal of like how like the cavalry would take a heavily fortified city like this. You just run through everything.
You just ride in.
There's like hundreds of soldiers, right? And if you were to like fight them, you would lose, but you break them. You don't fight them, you break them. You run straight through them to where they think everything is lost before the battle even really starts.
I mean, it's also the thing where it's like, a big cavalry charge like that. It's like, a horse weighs a fucking lot. If that thing even wings you, you're done. You're not gonna hop back up and be like, all right, horse, 1v1 right here, brother. That's not happening. And I love how after this, when they're going through and
they're raiding Aqaba.
They're raiding Aqaba. And I love how Lawrence is like, well, I must go back to Cairo and deliver the message that we've taken Aqaba. I've shown the worth of the, yada yada. But Auda is opening up the chest and he's like, what the fuck is this? What's this paper? And I'm like, that is probably millions of dollars in British pounds or whatever. And he's like,
or the Turkish equivalent.
The Turkish equivalent. And he's like, this isn't gold. I can't use this. Why would
he's just holding
treasure?
Fistfuls of money.
Just money.
And he's
what
like,
is
this is worthless to me.
And I'm like, that is another thing of like that cultural difference, that time difference of this moment in history, this World War I, where he's like, gold, that's money. This paper, this doesn't mean anything. I'm gonna wipe my ass with this. Here, give it to the children. Here. And I love how when he's doing it and he's throwing it off the fucking balcony, or I guess the steps or whatever, and people are just like, oh, the fuck is this? Ooh, a clock.
Yes, exactly.
They're taking items and stuff that like they can use. But this is when Lawrence is like, I'm going back to Cairo, I'm going to deliver the message, and I will bring you back, I think it was like 15,000 guineas or something like that. Something ridiculous, or 50,000 guineas.
I think it was 20,000 golden guineas.
I mean, what's the difference between 30,000 between friends?
Well, he's saying like he's going to go to Cairo and tell the Brits and like give them all the supplies they could ever want for. Artillery, tanks, horses, money, guns, everything. And then, to go send Sharif to go tell Faisal to bring Faisal here as well.
And then Lawrence goes across the desert heading to Cairo, and he loses one of his one of his...
Oh. I forgot. We missed
one of the best parts.
A very important scene right before they raid Aqaba with, what's that guy's name? Like, Gisma or Gisa?
Oh, yeah. Oh, fuck, I can't believe we forgot this. The guy he saved from the desert.
Yeah. Well, the guy he saved from the desert murders another man in the camp of the opposing tribe.
And this is going to cause a full-scale, like, battle right there between the two tribes. Like, your guy killed our guy, so we have to kill him. And they're like, you can't kill him because he's one of our guys. Mm-hmm. And Lawrence is like, the only way we can settle this is if
I take... if I become the executor of the law, you know?
Yeah.
You know, because they have very much like an eye for an eye type of thing going on here.
And
you have Lawrence with, I saved you, so I can be the one to put you down.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lawrence shoots him, like, he unloads the revolver at him.
Real quick, right before he kills him, he because, like, the guy, like, lifts up his head and Lawrence realizes it's the man he saved from the anvil. And he goes, "Did you do it?" And he nods. And then he just fucking unloads on the guy.
Just unloads
bam, bam.
And he goes back to Cairo and he goes... I liked it too much.
Wait, we haven't gotten there yet. Slow down. Right. We're jumping all over the place. Yeah, so he makes his way across the desert to get back to Cairo, but on the way, one of his servants perishes.
And it's sad.
In quicksand. Which, again, I thought I'd see more quicksand in my adulthood. I have not seen enough quicksand in my life.
No.
And it takes a toll on Lawrence. When he arrives back in Cairo, he is very distraught about having killed 2 people. I mean, he didn't really kill the kid, but
I think he's being hard on himself.
He's being real hard on himself. But the thing that disturbs him the most, he enjoyed killing that man.
Yes.
But did he enjoy it as much as that other kid loved the lemonade?
Oh, true.
I love when they walk in.
The whole scene when he arrives back in Cairo is so fucking good.
All the British officers like, what the fuck
They're
are you
like,
doing?
Oh, Lawrence.
They're also like, you get the low key like racist thing. They're like, why is the servant boy in here? Like, what's going on, Lawrence? Like, and he's like, we would like 2 large glasses of lemonade with ice. And they're like, whatever, dude. And then the general shows up and he's like, what's the meaning of this? Oh, I'm British. And then Lawrence tells him, we've taken Aqaba. And he's like, no fucking way. Really?
No shit, really? You fucking lied to me. And he's like, no.
I got it. It's cool.
And they have like the whole discussion throughout of like, what they're going to do next, like this and that. Lawrence wants to resign. He's like, no. You're far too good at this.
And they fucking promote him.
Yes.
Yeah.
He goes from a lieutenant to a major.
Major
here. And he's like, fucking, I guess I'll go back. I mean, Sheriff Ali was pretty cool. I liked him. And this is right when we get, like, intermission. Right?
When the men are walking down the walkway after, he when Lawrence is giving his demands, I want this, I want that. He's, of course. And they walk off and he's like, I'm not giving him that. He's like, I have my own orders I have to follow.
Oh, yeah, they won't give him artillery. That is the one thing they will not concede.
Exactly. And this is where we hit intermission. And, okay, part 1 of this movie, I really like part 1.
Very good.
Very, very good. Part 2 of the movie, is it better than the first part?
I think it's about the same.
Yeah.
I mean, it becomes less personal, I think, a little bit, and more like epic, more like Aqaba. More bigger shots of like columns of people throughout the desert and stuff like that.
Yeah, so
it kind of scales up a little.
Exactly. I am checking. We are running out of time, so let's speed run part 2, and then we'll get to the final stuff. Okay. So when we come back, the first thing we see, let's just blow up some trains.
Oh yeah, they're getting into the real modern warfare, guerrilla warfare, blowing up train tracks leading to Medina, basically causing hell out there.
And it's fucking cool because you could tell they're really blowing shit up in the desert.
And
they're really derailing a train.
And what was really cool was that when they were doing their location scouting for this, there were actual blown up trains that Lawrence had blown up. The real
like
Lawrence.
Still sitting around.
Still sitting around.
The
paint
impossible
hadn't
to recover.
chipped on them. They were still in the condition that he had left them.
That is so fucking cool.
That's pretty metal.
You got to be a thing where it's like, hey, Pete, like go stand over there. We're gonna take some pictures.
Well, I mean, the thing is that, like, once you derail a train out in the middle of the desert like that, there's no fucking recovering it.
Yeah.
It's over.
It's
on
over. It's
purpose.
just going to be there forever.
Yeah.
We're gonna lay some new tracks. Just do it around the train. It's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably literally what they did.
I know when they blew up when the general in the silent Buster Keaton comedy, when that blew up and they dumped it out in a lake, it was there until World War II when they scrapped the metal for the war. It was there for like 30 years.
They're like, oh, I guess now's the time to take it out of
I'm
here.
getting a little desperate for steel
Yes,
here.
damn. But as he's going and doing the guerrilla warfare, he loses his last
So
servant.
that was really,
Mhm.
really bad.
Because that one isn't like, oh, he was, got sucked into the quicksand. One of the detonators from the explosives blew up on his side,
Blew up, like, in his, like, garb.
and they're like, you can't leave him for the Turks.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, because they do have, like, a little... there's, like, a little discussion earlier about how the Turks do not consider the Arab rebels as prisoners of war. They are rebels, so the Geneva Code does not apply to them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Therefore, they can do whatever they feel like with them.
and they're like, Lawrence, like, look, we can't leave him for the Turks, and Lawrence has to kill him.
He can't ride, and you also can't leave him for the Turks.
Yeah.
And that another heartbreaking moment for
Mhm.
Lawrence, because it's a thing where the Lawrence at the beginning of the movie is like, man, it's so beautiful. I get to be out in Arabia. I get to be in the garb, and I'm fighting blah blah blah. It is a taxing thing to see how death weighs on him.
Mhm.
Even when he says, "And I enjoyed it," I'm like, that is a very like painful thing for somebody to go through. Is like,
Yeah.
Well, because you can kind of get the feeling that Lawrence is a very, like, cerebral man. He's a thinker, you know?
Mhm.
And so he's not one of these people that, like, kills somebody and goes, haha, funny, he died.
Yeah.
He goes, God, what have I done? You know?
Mhm.
He very much has that, like, very deep realization of everything.
yeah, and it's
Somebody who's able to reflect even on his own emotions and how he feels about things on a deep level to figure out, oh God, I enjoyed it.
and that's fucking wild.
Mhm.
Especially as like the movie starts to progress, especially when we get to like the slaughter.
Oh
right before the
yes,
massacre.
yes.
Mhm.
Where this is like nearing the very end of the war, where they're gonna ride towards Damascus, and the British generals are like, "Oh, but do you think he's gonna get to Damascus before us? There's a whole Turkish column in his way."
Mhm.
Well, they catch up to said Turkish column right after they they totally raze a village.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like dead kids, dead
Mhm.
women, dead children,
Mhm.
everything.
The first time there's like dead women in the movie.
The first time there's women in the movie.
True, actually.
There's no women
No,
that
I-
speak in the movie.
I think there's like a shot beforehand where it shows like women in one of the camps, just a little bit. But
Does-
like
do-
that's like it. Like,
Question: do any of them speak?
no.
Nope.
I'm sorry. Peter O'Toole's pretty. He's Florence. It's fine.
hmm
Eh.
But yeah, so they discover the Turkish column leaving this raised village and no prisoners.
Is that another one of those hardest moments in cinema history for you?
Yeah, that's a pretty when the I think it's Auda is chanting no prisoners, and
The
one guy who's like this was his village goes and charges after the Turks and gets gunned down.
Yeah.
and he goes out alone, and they just watch him, and I'm like, that's fucking hardcore.
Because you can tell that Lawrence wants to charge them and take no prisoners, but he's fighting like that inner turmoil against it. He's like, he doesn't want to become like Auda, who's like this bloodthirsty, just like
A warlord.
beast of a man.
Yeah.
And you have Sharif in his ear. He's telling him, no, let's do this instead.
No, we have to make it to Damascus. Think of Damascus. And eventually Lawrence gives in to his bloodthirst. Literal fucking bloodthirst
Yeah.
almost.
It is also interesting with that because Sharif, as he
His character's like progressing
As-
through all of this where he's becoming more political.
yeah, as he progresses, he's like, I've learned to read. I read books on politics. He's a man who is like, I am ready to
Embrace the new world.
embrace the new world. And Lawrence is a man who's almost seems like he's trying to regress to the old world of bloodlust, of war, of combat.
And there's this whole like part going on throughout all of this with the British reporter or the American reporter.
American reporter,
The
because it
American
has to be an
reporter.
American.
Yes.
And he's taking pictures of Lawrence, and Lawrence is kind of reveling in this new fame and this new like strength he has, and he's like, And Lawrence is almost like, with my face or with my name or whatever, I can rally all the people of Arabia and I can free them. He gets a big ego boost.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is like, he goes and he raids, or he just destroys the Turkish column, full slaughter, and we get the parallel of the first time he sees himself in his robes with the dagger, and now the dagger is covered in blood, and he is covered in blood, and he's looking at his reflection in there, and I'm like, oh, we have a full circle moment here.
Oh, yeah.
But right after this is where he's going to go into Damascus to, like, spy on them?
Yeah, or it's like another city that he's going to, like, infiltrate near Damascus to, like, kind of prove that he can pass as an Arab, right?
A 6'2", blonde hair, blue-eyed, white Peter O'Toole is like, I can do it.
He almost gets away with it.
He almost does.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is a thing where when they enter, it's him and Sharif Ali, and they're walking through the town, and people are like looking at him, but he's like, just keep walking. It's I know the walk, I know the talk, I know this, I know that.
But he does get caught, and I don't think they out him as being British, but definitely not from around there.
Yeah. And
he gets a little bit of tortured, a little bit.
They whip his back. They beat the shit out of him. And this is something that's like that's true to life to the real T.E. Lawrence. He was like tortured in this kind of situation. But what follows this scene is him and Ali having like a real like heart to heart about Lawrence being a man of no home and realizing the home he wants to be accepted and he can never be.
Yeah.
He's like, look at me. I think Lawrence has that realization, is like, look at me. I know the culture. I have fought with you. I've bled with you, but I can never be one of you because like my skin is white and I can't. And it's like, that's an interesting thing about the movie.
Yeah, and he has his last interaction too with the British generals right after, where he starts like bleeding in the office as he's talking to them, and how he promises them. I guess this is like ahead of like the whole thing with the Turkish column, or like before. I mean, with the whole thing with the Turkish column, because I think this is happening like during winter,
something like that,
and before they like actually ride towards Damascus. But anyway, he like tells the generals like, I will take Damascus, and like that's gonna be it. Like I'm gonna take it whether you're there or not.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be over.
It's gonna be over.
And then
flash forward to when they actually go to Damascus.
The taking of Damascus. Another big epic battle.
I mean, they just kind of ride in.
It looks cool.
Yeah, it does look cool.
It looks cool. But he goes in, he takes Damascus, and it's another thing where now we get to see the other like mercenaries that have rallied behind Lawrence around him as a figure. And it's interesting. They're like, why are you taking Damascus? Because Lawrence says we must. And Ali is like, these people aren't here for their freedom. They're here because of you. That's different. And when they take Damascus, and we get to see the government, because Lawrence takes it over, and his goal pretty much the whole time is he wants Arab independence. He doesn't want English controlling them. He wants them to govern themselves.
Well, because it kind of links back to like they have this whole talk about the infamous Sykes-Picot agreement, where like France and Britain are gonna like carve up the Middle East afterwards. Well, in the Sykes-Picot agreement, what's known as Syria nowadays is like, oh, if the Arabs manage to take Syria themselves, we'll leave it to them. And so, what is Lawrence, after finding out about this, what he wants to do? Take Syria with the Arabs to kind of forward their independence.
But once we're in Damascus and we see all the tribes all taking into this Congress and this parliament, we see that this is not a sustainable government. Because I also like the symbolic thing of Lawrence changes his pistol to a gavel.
Yes.
And now he's like, oh my god, like I've killed so many people, I've worked all this, and I've brought all these people together, but there's so many deep-seated hatreds between these people. There's so many things that go back generations that we can't resolve here.
Yeah.
These people control the water, these people control the electricity, but because these two hate each other, the guy that runs the hospital can't get anything done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a thing where it almost feels like Lawrence has come to the realization that all I have worked for has been for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Because once we finally get to seeing Prince Faisal, the British generals, he sees... Prince Faisal basically says, like, warfare is over. It is time for politics.
Mm-hmm.
And Faisal is, like, basically just trading with the English, being like, you can control this amount, but I get control of this. He's piecing apart the Damascus, all these tribes, all these areas, and all this region. And it's like, fucking... how many people did Lawrence kill? How far did he travel? How far did he go? And it all winds up to... Bro, yeah, kind of played for the wrong team.
Well,
or maybe not wrong the team, but
it's just kind of like, at the end of the day, he's gonna have to, the war is over. You're gonna have to step aside, kid.
Mm-hmm.
And the last shot the last thing we see is Lawrence in the Jeep, and he's going home, and you see him just so absolutely depressed because he's like, I have no home, and
he's dying inside.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to be there.
He wants to be there, and we pass by the people on the camels riding into the desert, and then we also see the motorcycle whizzing by. And beginning of the movie, that's how he died. And that was Lawrence of Arabia.
And as far as I know, all the stuff leading up to Damascus from the beginning of the movie is like pretty true to life. But the whole part of like taking Damascus and all that stuff is more of like a fictionalized thing in the movie.
Yeah.
Because in the movie it's implied that like Lawrence and the Arabs arrived in Damascus first when that wasn't the case in real life. And also the whole like Arab council in Damascus only lasted like 2 months in real life.
Also him being bloodthirsty when people who knew him were like, no, he wasn't really bloodthirsty. They were kind of upset, this wasn't Lawrence.
Yeah.
But it's like for character progression.
It's really good in the movie.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, it's still like a movie. It's not supposed to be like a one-to-one recreation of his life.
Yeah, I think that's a thing because...
but I do like to note where the artistic license was taken.
Yeah, because it is pretty much once the taking of Damascus happens, it's like, okay, now we're almost going into full fiction. But before that, it's like everything in the broadest strokes is pretty accurate. I think Sharif Ali is like... his character is an amalgamation of a couple different people that Lawrence interacted with. I think Sharif Ali was actually a real person.
Yes, he was a real guy.
But like all those interactions he had throughout the movie, they met at different points, and
Yeah.
But
also to note his own biography of his time in Arabia. I think it's called like 7 Pillars of Wisdom,
which you want to get.
There's been disputed things about like what he said, and like most of them that were like disputed, like, oh, I don't know if this really happened, were like found out to be like, yeah, that really did happen. That was true.
Yeah, this is the most interesting man to have ever lived.
There was only like a couple of things where people are like, it didn't really happen exactly as he described, There's only a few things in like the book that and they're kind of minor things.
It's one of those fascinating things that this movie is so like poetic and deep and moving, and it's based on like a real guy. And it's generally it's pretty accurate to the real guy.
Generally it's pretty accurate, yeah.
But like
that's kind of crazy.
But last week we did Cleopatra, which is probably one of the not so great epics of the 60s era.
Because it should have been renamed The Adventures of Caesar and Mark Antony, featuring Cleopatra. So, it's different to see, these true living historical figures, and, we get Lawrence where, you're actually talking about Lawrence of Arabia, not, Lawrence is there, like, in the background. We'll bring him up every now and then, but in this movie, he is the focal point. We stay with him, and we see his progression.
And it's interesting because that's one of the the lesser epics, and this one you could argue is
one of the best.
One of the best is the epic.
Yes.
Would you call this is this the GOAT of all epics? Is this over Ben-Hur, Ten Commandments,
this is probably the
Seven Samurai?
This is probably the most popular of the epics.
You think so?
Yeah, what's a more popular epic than this?
I mean,
of this time period.
Maybe 2001, but it gets into very argumentative moments.
2001's not an epic.
It's a sci-fi epic.
It's not an epic.
It has an intermission.
It's not an epic.
Seven Samurai, maybe.
It's not as popular as this movie. Not by a long shot.
Seven Samurai is pretty. Get out of
It's
America
not that popular. Okay,
it's probably Probably Ben-Hur. You know, it's probably...
Ben-Hur's probably pretty close to the pop. I think Lawrence of Arabia. I think it just takes the cake as the most popular, the most referenced out of all.
Definitely
of
the
these.
most referenced.
Mm-hmm.
Like definitely most referenced. Like Spielberg's entire career is him trying to reference this movie in every movie.
Because I mean,
God,
Ten
all the shots
Commandments
in this
is
movie is
huge, but you know that leads more to religion. Where Lawrence of Arabia, you're just going to watch an epic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just a fascinating fucking movie, and I'm gonna finish this up real quick, but I just wanted to say that this was nominated for 10 Oscars. Mm-hmm. It won 7.
Did it win cinematography?
Yes. It won,
as it should.
As it should.
It lost its acting nominations.
Really?
Yes. Peter O'Toole lost to, you might know him, Gregory Peck, who played Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird, which came out this year. Yeah, you ain't beaten Atticus Finch, right?
I suppose that would make sense.
Yeah, if you're wondering what came out this year, that would be, other than To Kill a Mockingbird, The Miracle Worker, The Manchurian Candidate, Lolita, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, The Man Who Killed Liberty Valance, The Music Man. Yeah, kind of a stacked year.
It's a stacked year, yeah.
And, but Lawrence of Arabia was like...
What year was this?
1962 was when Lawrence of Arabia was released.
Lolita
so this
came out in 62?
Yep. It's one of those weird things because I think Kubrick made it right after, or right before, right after Spartacus, right before Doctor Strangelove. I think that's when it lines up.
Okay, yeah.
But this movie made a bunch of money, $70 million box office against a $15 million budget, and this had...
Wait, really? Only $15 million? I mean, I know it's the 60s, but like, come on.
15 mil.
You
don't make movies like this anymore.
I think Spielberg did the math, and he was like, in modern money, it would have been a $200 million movie, close to 300.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody making this movie for $200 million nowadays.
No.
The horses alone would cost you that much.
So many horses.
And so many days of shooting.
300 days of shooting.
Well, there's no way. Not even close.
And like that's the thing. Like this movie, you can't make this movie again. They've tried to make sequels to it before.
No, it doesn't need it.
Yeah, well, they did with Ralph Fiennes back in 1990, which is interesting. I think it's literally called Lawrence After Arabia. That's the name. Beautiful.
He has a funny life story after he got back home, where he tried to join the military under pseudonym multiple times, and got found out the first time and got kicked out, and then was forcibly the recruiter got a letter from the higher ups being let him in under the pseudonym, and then later on he joined the Air Force again, and the same thing happened, and all this shit, and he resigned from the military and died 2 months later in a motorcycle accident.
This is a fascinating gentleman.
Which was speculated that maybe it wasn't an accident.
Yeah, because there was conflicting eyewitness testimony.
Yeah, someone claimed that there was a big black car that was out there that might have, knocked him off the bike, and it wasn't the two kids that were out there riding the bike. But it just adds to his mystique.
Yeah, adds to the mystique.
Well, that was Lawrence of Arabia. Any last thoughts?
I have one fun fact.
Okay, we had a few so far, so this better be the most funnest.
Well,
most funnest.
I'll try.
Okay.
Peter O'Toole, he only has one son. His name is Lorcan, which is Irish for Lawrence.
Aww. If I played Lawrence of Arabia, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
But the only thing I can say about Lawrence of Arabia is this movie is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's number 7 on the AFI Top 100, and it's no longer on the Sight and Sound Top 100 anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It fell off. But I'm that list is wrong. This movie's great.
I don't know about that, but
people should watch Lawrence of Arabia more often. This movie's amazing. It does not feel like 4 hours. It has probably some of the best acting in it, and
really good acting and dialogue.
And just pick any random frame in this, and it's probably the top 10 frames in all of cinema. But yeah, really love Lawrence of Arabia.
I really liked the nickname that they gave Lawrence, because they didn't understand the name Lawrence L. Arns. And because I like the name because I think Orens is an old term for gold currency. I'm not 100% sure about that, but it sounds very familiar to me. I no research done here. It just sounds good. But yeah, cool. I think Orens means gold or some such like that. And so, because he's a blonde-haired white guy, he's got golden
locks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thought that was cool.
For me, perfect movie. 5 out of 5 if we're gonna rate it. I mean,
Yeah.
how could you not?
Yeah, 4.9 out of 5.
It's like
Not enough titties. No, I'm joking.
I mean, okay, 4.5 out of 9, not enough titties. It is one of those things where I'm like, how are you gonna knock out Lawrence of Arabia? It's a perfect movie.
It's a beautiful movie. It sounds beautiful, looks beautiful. The actors are amazing. This is one of those movies where you need to watch it at least once.
Yes, absolutely. But if you want to watch or listen to something completely different, what are we doing next week?
Next week, we're ending our Epics month with, I guess, the revival of the epic, or the rebirth of the epic.
It's a new epic.
It's a new epic. We're talking about Zack Snyder's The Justice League.
The 4-hour-long Justice League. I'm sorry, Randy's having a stroke over there. He's not looking forward to this. But we have that one is the last movie of Epics month, and it's going to be a epic episode. We have multiple guests for that one.
We do have multiple guests,
and it's going to be real good. But if you wanted to listen to that, where can they go?
If you want to listen to us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube.
You can go to our YouTube channel, The Film Vault. That is The Film Vault on YouTube, where you can like, comment, and subscribe to the video slideshow versions of this podcast. And I'm going to be dumping a lot of older episodes on there, so it'll be updated very quickly. But if you want to follow us on social media, you can go to
The Film Club Podcast on Instagram, where we post daily stories, upcoming episodes, and random adventures we go on.
And Randy, do you want to plug anything? Any weird streams you've been watching or funny movies?
Shout out to Sakana, the best waifu.
Thank you, Randy. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Randy. All right, well, I forgot my sign off. Everyone have a good time, I guess.
We'll see you next week at the Film Club.
Bye.
Bye.